Well, hello everybody. We are here in Irvine, Kentucky at the Kentucky Steam Heritage Corporation Steam Shop, former CSX car maintenance facility, and we're working on the 2716's new wrapper side sheets. This is the left-hand sheet. That's the right hand. I laid that one out yesterday, and we're going to lay this one out. Now people hear that term, laying out a sheet and whatever, but how many times has anyone actually been able to see it done? Well, I've already done some. While I was fitting the sheet into the boiler, sheets plural, there are two of them. While I was fitting those into the boiler, I took the opportunity to pick up on some physical cues of the boiler itself to aid in the layout process. Otherwise it'd be far more complicated. And anytime you can make something easier, why wouldn't you do it, right? So, all right. Every once in a while, I'll be checking to see if anybody has any questions or anything like that. Obviously, I'm way over here. The phone's way over there. Evan Peach is hiding off camera. But we'll be checking now and again. And the process is definitely a science. All right, go ahead and hold it there. Yeah, just off the marks. Neat thing to think about is, unless there was some wreck damage or something like that repaired at some point, sheets like this have not been laid out since the last time a canal was actually built by Alco. Or Lyman. No, stay on there. I was using a C-clamp yesterday. C-clamp stay in place. That was a joke. It was funny. Ha ha. Ha ha. I may not be Rain Man, but it's still funny. You gotta love The Hangover. It's just a funny movie. Okay, so that's the first one to this end. So the process, one thing about laying out boiler sheets, there's a lot of the sheet is laid out by utilizing equal spaces. So you'll have a given line, another line at the other end of the sheet. There's X number of equal spaces, and so you just plot them out accordingly. This isn't a fast process. Believe me, this is not action-packed, but still, it's something neat to see done if you've never seen it done before. And for those that are wondering, no, this is not just like a Home Depot or Harbor Freight or whatever aluminum straight edge. This is a tempered steel Starrett straight edge. Starrett. You gotta love Starrett. And yes, for anybody that's thinking it, wow, I'm using Starrett on boiler work? Well, yeah. I like to think of the boiler work that I do is kind of precision boiler work. Alright, so here's what we want. Let's see. I did this just yesterday, but I always like to double check. Even, you can put more white paint down and erase lines, but I prefer to not have to. Yeah. I want to check one other thing. Let's see. Okay, want to be sure. hold it like, literally like a C-clamp. That looks good. So what I'm doing right now is striking out the front and rear columns of stay-bolts. And then between these, there's 22 equal spaces. So the next step is to get the measurement and double check it off the old sheet, make sure everything's happy. And then we'll take that measurement, divide it by 22, and there's our number. I go down to 64ths in terms of exacting the positioning. Okay. Did you hand me the 8 or the 24? Gotta love the flexible rules. They're really handy. And they kind of kind of intimidate Jonathan Shared, so that's fun too.
Some people's kids.
Okay. Let's see. 88. Almost dead on the line. Okay. Do-do-do. Do-do-do. Okay. Actually, you know what? Let's do that again. Because instead of going off the bottom of the sheet, I'm going to do it off the right here. Ba-da-ba-ba-da, ba-da-ba. Still, same dimension. Or is that where I had it before?
No, it didn't.
Okay, well, still parallel. I say 83 inches. Now, align it to the actual bolts and all, because this has that wonkiness going on. Oh, boy, I love it. Well, it's within an eighth, so we'll call that good. An eighth of an inch over that distance is nothing to worry about. And incidentally, this one measures out to 88 inches between the lines. The old one measures out to 88 and an eighth. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the whole number, or not whole number, but the round number is probably a little bit better. It needs a calculator on your phone, since mine's doing internet things. Let's see. I'll check and see if anybody has asked anything or whatever. Huh, no. Wow. Cool. No questions. You can ask questions. That is okay. All right. So 88, 2, 40. Well, that works out to just be unfairly easy. All right, so that's let's see. Schmutz.
It's everything.
Yes. Alrighty. Here.
87 and 30.
Yeah, we'll say 3/8. What is the difference? Yeah. Take the outside lines. All right, so that's 87 and 3/8, right?
Yeah.
So the pattern does narrow up a little bit from bottom to top. Not by much, only by 5/8 of an inch, but it does narrow up, so you have to alter the spacing. So then the field also fans out a little bit, ever so slightly from rear to front, which does not show up in the drawings, by the way. That's an interesting thing. On the drawings, it actually shows these portions that are already drawn out of the field of bolts actually being in parallel lines, but they're not. Found that out when I was measuring everything out and striking lines while the sheet was up in place. It's not by much. It's only about 1/8 of an inch or so difference from rear to front. But cumulatively over all these rows, if you didn't have that 1/8 of an inch extra spacing at the front end, then it would add up and you'd end up with something, you know, an inch off, which obviously would be no good. All right. So, 7.75 equals. Again, post questions if you have them. You know, I'll check every 5 or 10 minutes or so.
You're machining and doing work like this, do you always take it out to 1,000?
Oh yeah. I mean, especially when you're dimensioning stuff out,
But you don't round it up.
no, there's no reason to. If you're adding numbers, you're adding numbers. And every 1,000th you account for, as you're doing the math on it, just provides you with that much more accuracy. Plus, well, I hit plus already. Oops. It's pretty close. What was it on the other side?
7.9.
Yeah.
7.3. And probably the next one will be up over 12.
Almost 11.9.
That's the same.
Is it?
Those 11.
Bring that over here. I'm not doing unnecessary stuff, am I? That happens sometimes.
11.96.
What's the spacing? 3.986. That's 10 thousandths difference. So that'd be only a quarter inch, but still it's a quarter of an inch difference over the length. Really close, but not quite. I saw Gary watching. I've got to think that if he could hear what I just said, he rolled his eyes a little bit. I'm me, you know, what can I say? If the people who built these things could have ever known that such devices as a well, they didn't even know what a computer was, would be used a calculator. I can access information all over the world using a damn America as a calculator. All right. An abacus.
An abacus.
A digital abacus. Yeah. So what I'm doing is, since the spacing is not a consistent whole number as it is across the bottom, where it's a solid 4 inches all the way across. Since that's a little off, you know, I divided the spacing out. It actually comes out to be 3.971 inches per bolt spacing at the top end. So I'm going ahead and adding up, stacking the numbers for each one of those incremental spacings before we start laying it out, and just get all that done ahead of time. Anybody curious?
No.
Oh, wow.
Either that or I need to put it, but.
Oh, mercy. How close is it now?
2/10.
How many thousands? 20?
It's 43.55,
20?
67.
Well, that's 200 difference. 200,000 difference. Okay. Okay. So 43. Took me a minute to figure out how to get the cursor to let me paste without buggering everything out. Isn't it exciting? See, this is the side of steam locomotive restoration that nobody gets to see. People see videos of rivets going in and maybe stuff being machined and, you know, dropping anvils on Evan's head. For money, we do it.
All the glamorous stuff.
Yeah, you know, locomotive running, obviously, but this is, you know, this sort of thing, and just general mechanical work. Non-flashy stuff is what makes these things go, for the most part, what gets them back to a condition where they can go. You want to look at it that way? So Evan, we'll talk about Evan.
Oh, God.
Evan recently moved to the Lexington area from where in Iowa?
Fairfield, which is in southeast Iowa. It's right next to Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, he's been a Kentucky Steam volunteer for a while. He came down here not too long ago with a fellow named Joe McGee, whose dad, Bill McGee, actually worked on this locomotive back when the Southern redid it. So that's kind of a neat little family tie-in. But yeah, where all have you been involved?
My last stint, I was with the Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant at Old Threshers, and helped out at the Boone and Scenic with the restoration of 8419 a little bit and running trains there, and helped out in Nashville for a few years, and now I'm here, and my full-time job is I work for RJ Corman out of Lexington, who coincidentally just donated their steam locomotive
Yes,
as well.
the QJ.
The QJ. Which we are excited to have.
Oh my gosh, those things are just really neat. And you know, people sometimes presume that I know like all Steam things because I do this stuff. Well, there's more information out there than probably anybody except Dennis Doherty can keep straight in their head. Yeah, I didn't know until like 2 weeks ago that the QJs are copies of Russian engines. I didn't know that the Chinese ripped off a Russian design.
That's what I always heard.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
sure.
the Russians made a crude copy of American engines, and then the Chinese made a cruder copy off of Russian engines.
So this is a fun little thing. So when I divided this out to get the distances, it came out, or the distance we're going for, right? It's over 22 equal spaces over 87.375 inches. So that's 87 3/8. Now, when I just went through and stacked up all the numbers, the way that I did it, I just copied the actual number that came out of that equation, and then just kept, plus paste equals, right? Just copied and pasted. And the number is 3.97159099091. It takes it out 9 digits beyond the, 10 digits beyond the decimal. And even at that, it still managed to achieve an error using its own number of, golly, what is 10 digits past the decimal point? I mean, that's beyond millions.
Yeah.
Billions, whatever. Huge numbers. But no, even its own sum was off when you stack it up 22 times. I find that interesting. Nobody else does, but I do. The computer can't even keep up with itself accurately. All right, so now we'll go through, since this is already here, we can have that for now. Figure out the actual fractions. I know a lot of the fraction decimal equivalents, like, off the top of my head, but not all of them. So I am going to make myself a little cheat sheet and round up to the nearest, or round up or down or whatever, to the nearest actual whole fraction, just to make life easier.
Nick, I just saw your comment, and you are not riveting, or you're not riveting and you're boring, so.
Ha. Somewhere you just made Jonathan smart, I think. Let's see, 14. That's all the same amount in there.
This is a good question.
Okay.
Peter Della Flora says, I wonder if the copy of a copy design had something to do with the QJs never having their counterbalancing quite right, because they aren't.
Well,
I've never heard of one that rides really good, and they always say it's because the counterbalancing is so out of whack on them.
And that well could be, because I'm sure they probably didn't go into that level of detail in copying them. What else are people saying?
Mr. Benjamin says these sheets are being changed because the inner sheets were changed 3 or 4 times and the staples got too enlarged.
Right, that is correct. Somebody must have asked a question.
No. And
it had been a topic of great discussion elsewhere. People were, how shall I put this? People were chiming in about how this sort of thing doesn't need to be done. Well, it comes down to a matter of what makes the most economical sense. And in this instance, the deal was to go through and replace. Okay, so you know, some people watching this are familiar. The way a boiler goes together, you've got a hole, it gets threaded, the inside sheet is also threaded, and you have a stay bolt that threads through. It's kind of like a piece of all thread, but made of a proper actual alloy for boiler use, and also a different thread pitch, 12 teeth per inch. And so when you go through, or when the railroad would go through and you know, replace sheets, whatever, at some point they would ream out that hole to the size of a 1 1/4 inch pipe reamer. And they'd make a bushing that's tapered on the outside, that's a drive-in or knock-in fit to that hole, and then they'd weld around it, just to kind of, it was more of a seal weld than a structural weld because the two tapers interlocking made the structure. So anyway, to go through and replace all of those in this sheet, you know, assuming some volunteer labor to like drill holes and whatnot, is actually more expensive than buying new material and installing the new material, because either way you're having to go through and remove all the bolts. Then you're having to remove all the bushings in addition and prep the sheets for the new ones. Then go through and drill and ream the holes that don't already have bushings in them, which was about, I don't know, 20% of them. Then have all the bushings, about 300 of them, CNC machined, etc. And that gets really expensive really quick. Well, the rivets are already out. You have to have the bolts out regardless. So you could spend less time putting new holes into the sheet than opening up the old holes. And then past that, you're just a little bit of layout time, the material cost. It's about 20% to 30% less the cost of actually replacing and installing all those bushings. And then you got new material.
And the beauty of it is, in
that Evan's here. That's the beauty of it.
That is the beauty of it, is that I am here.
And ladies, he's single.
And I am offering absolutely no help other than holding a ruler for Jason. Because I myself am learning.
Well, but that's the thing. That's the thing, is learning.
But the beauty of doing the work now and doing it right the first time is when these sheets go in, I mean, God forbid the unforeseeable happening, but when these sheets go in, this is something that myself and Nick and Jonathan and some of the younger guys that are working here, this is something that we will probably not have to deal with again in our lifetime.
Yep.
Given as often as we run, but it's just something that if we get it done now, it's just one less thing to worry about down the road, because doing preventative maintenance like this now means there's less major repairs in the future that keep 2716 from running and offline for years at a time. Where in the winter, we can come in, do scheduled maintenance as needed, and just continue on with its life and keep it rolling so that all of you can see it doing what it was built to do.
What was it built to do?
It was built to go chew.
There you go.
It was built to pull cars down 2 steel tracks.
Yeah.
And it did it quite well.
Hauling all sorts of artillery during World War II. Memorial Day having just passed. Have you thinking about that?
Yes.
Or some like to say, yeesh. Oh, duh, that's all. Do. I had several people ask me, incidentally, as I like Normally I'm a lot faster at this. I've just got to point this out. Normally I'm a lot faster at this, but I'm thinking about just all the stuff that I might be able to explain and things of what's going on. So it's taking me for bloody ever to work to just do the fraction equivalent. But we'll get there. But no, I had several people ask me if I was going to have these water jetting. And while water jetting is a really neat thing, it's not necessarily the end-all answer for doing this kind of stuff, because if you're building a new boiler, like Jason Johnson is doing via the T1 truss up in Ohio at Gemini Machine, like, you know, they just ship their firebox off to Continental Boiler for weld out. It's a new boiler. It's blueprinted, and you can, you know, be assured that everything is exactly where you need it to be. But like this, if we went off the print, things would misalign by as much as 3/8 of an inch, which of course is not desirable at all. Not acceptable, for that matter.
Peter has another comment. He says, I imagine preventative maintenance like this would make 1472s faster and cheaper.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because all too often, and I understand why, it doesn't make it necessarily any better, really, but I do understand why. You know, people want to get the engines running. People want to get the engines running. They've worked on them for years, or you know, they find more and more wrong with them the farther they get them apart, etc. And there's a lot of stuff that gets done that's like, all right, well, it's okay now, or it's okay enough to be legal. And then a locomotive goes through a 15-year cycle, and you're stuck in situations where you're having to either take the engine apart much further than you should have to in order to get it through its next inspection cycle, or even having to undo some of the work that was done to it before. Like, just as a for instance, not that this necessarily would have happened because I haven't seen any evidence of cracking, but hypothetically, go through and replace all these bushings. And it is old steel, it's been through a lot of thermal cycles, and the holes are really large compared to a regular stable hole. So you put all the new bushings in, you seal weld all of them, and then what if? What if you get some star cracking coming out of some of the holes? Just not that it's something inherent that would happen with any locomotive or whatever that has this design stuff, but what if the metallurgy was a little off on these sheets? It wasn't to an exact science like it is now today. Heck, they still get stuff off today, right? So what if new side sheets, inner side sheets go in, and then all this work was done, and then you end up with star cracking or something? It's just there's a multitude of reasons to make it a really wise way to go, and that is all too often a thing. I'm sure a lot of you out there are familiar with locomotives that were put into service and ran a little bit and then came out of service before their 15-year cycle was even up because stuff wasn't done correctly, or enough wasn't done, or you know, maybe it makes it through its 15-year cycle, and then, you know, after 1 point, whatever, arbitrary number here, 1.3 or $1.4 million fundraising campaign, the engine ran, and now after only 15 years of operation, it only needs another $800,000 to run. Versus, you look at like the level of work that Robert Franzen put in and had put in by his employees, at the Grand Canyon Railway on the 4960 and the 29. And man, the 4960 came up for its 15-year deal in, what year was that? 2011 or something like that, thereabouts. And yeah, they got it done over a winter. I mean, it pays to do it all and do it well, even if it takes a little bit longer.
I don't know about you, but I don't want to have to change stables
Yeah.
constantly.
Well, there is that. Yeah. And then there's other people. There's also, you would think, folks, that we would be past the point of old wives' tales influencing things in the preservation world. But there's all sorts of them out there. Such as, one of my favorite ones is, oh no, I'm going to reverse this so it's easier to keep track of. One of them being that ultrasound meters, you don't even need one of those. It's nothing more than a contractor's tool to make money off of working on a boiler. Well, I mean, sometimes contractors do get to make money, but it's generally so people don't go boom. You know, obviously, they are very critical tool to have. Okay, so let's see. Actually, what I want to do, because I need the 64th side, I'm going to flip this around. Up off the line about, yeah, about that much. Now, is that the 64th side that we have? Yes, it is. Yeah. Alrighty. Anyway, back to this.
Scheduled maintenance is scheduled maintenance, and nothing with these things is ever fast or easy. It's always very time-consuming work, which is part of the reason why the railroads got rid of them.
Indeed.
It just takes time and patience, but it makes it much more worth it in the end.
Okay. And 752. And then 11 and 29 seconds.
Then we can just mark these off for the top course, center course, bottom course, right? And then we can just.
No, so what we're going to do, we're marking these positions out, and we're going to go down and mark the bottom at 4-inch intervals, and then just like we did these front and back ones, just
Go over.
strike them all the way. Yep. It's the easiest part. And then we get into laying out the staggered field that's in between the upper and lower bits. This is 15 and 57 64s. Right there. Thank God for my vision. 19, 55, 64s. 23, 53.
Oh, here you go, Jason.
Okay.
Alexander Sigworth says, how did you get into this kind of contract work?
Well, that's a good question.
Many moons ago.
You know, it's something that I was just interested in most all of my life. It went from being, trains, machinery, big machinery stuff, to more of an appreciation for history. And this, keeping these things alive is kind of like, I don't know, it's the industrial commercial version of a Jurassic Park of sorts. It allows people to, in a sense, be immersed in a previous era. And people, the general public, really responds to it once they see it, once they've experienced it. So I've been working around this stuff for years and years. Starting in '92 at the Southeastern Railway Museum in Duluth, Georgia, at its original location in Duluth. And from there, it just, I worked at a theme park. I worked at Six Flags Over Georgia. And, then the next paying job that I had around Steam was in Savannah, Georgia State Railroad Museum. In what year? 2002. And then since then, I've worked here, there, the other. And the thing of it is that I reached a point where my knowledge and capability level was such that it didn't make sense for me to go to work at a tourist railroad or whatever unless I was running the program. And someone needed help here, there, the other. I worked with Gary Bensman a lot at Steamtown and some other projects. I oversaw the, I guess my first real contract job. Well, no, that's not right. I was doing stuff at Steamtown with Gary, and then I spent a lot of time overseeing the most recent 1472 day that the Sioux 1003 received. Went out there and did the inspection, and then led teams of people when I wasn't busy at Steamtown doing various things, pulling the tubes and flues. Gary was out there for a lot of that, and he and I worked together really on that one to develop a work plan, a scope of work, and everything for it. And it went off really well with not that many volunteers. But no, it's I guess that was the first real entry into it. And I mean, the last time I actually worked for somewhere was in 2010 at the New Hope in Ivyland. Good Lord, 11 years. 2010.
God, you're old.
Oh, God, you're gonna get there. But I don't have gray hair, so that's a plus. But I don't have kids either, so of course I don't have gray hair. Haha. Kids are great. Other people's children are great. They're fun. But no, that was the last time I actually worked for a place versus as a contractor. God, 11 years. It was a fun place too. Guy that owns the railroad is a pretty cool character. Anybody else have any questions?
Sometimes I gotta refresh this because it doesn't seem like you want to come through.
Yeah. I am super congested. If you can hear any of that, I apologize for it. It's been really bad since about the time any of the weather started warming up here. Didn't happen to me last year. I don't know what's up with this year. And for those tuning in, what we're doing is laying out the left side new wrapper side sheet for the 2716. The old one's there on the floor. Still with all the bolts on the back side of it. Made it kind of heavy.
Gary, I think we figured out yesterday that there was going to be 308 bolts in each sheet plus the rivet holes, which is there's 64 rivet holes that need to be put in them. I think is what I counted. Isn't that right? We figured about 308 bolts.
308 bolts per sheet, and then
64 rivet holes.
yeah. So let's round it up and say 380 holes, not including the holes for the blowdowns and washout plug sleeves and whatnot.
I see. Oh man.
And then 30 seconds. I love it when it works out.
We're only got 80%. They want to see us marking this. Can we move the camera in closer? Like here.
I mean, yeah, we can do that. Who wants to see the marking?
Gary.
Oh, of course. I figured. All right, here we go. Here. No, like Susan said it. No, we need to be able to walk. We need to be able to walk around it. No, over here. Okay. There we go. You got a better view of the monotonous process of marking out the side sheet. There can be only one. Or you're not a Highlander person. You're not old enough to know you know what the Highlander is, are you?
How old are you?
It's a movie.
I think I have seen Highlander.
I would hope so. It's like referenced.
I have, but it's been a long time.
It's referenced throughout pop culture. I mean, there can be only one. It's something that.
Who's in there?
Oh golly.
You're gonna tell me.
No, it's like some dude, and then Sean Connery.
Yes.
Who was not the star? Who should have been the star because, well, it's Sean Connery.
Now that's gonna bother me. Highlander. Christopher Lambert.
Yeah, I don't.
Sean Connery.
Movie trivia time with Jason and Evan. It was a lot easier doing the other sheet because it's on sawhorses. This one's going to be a bugger. Wax.
Oh.
Lab F.
You have all of those memorized.
This is 4 inches.
Oh, just 4 inches. Just 4 inches.
I could have gone along with that though, couldn't I have? Yes, I did memorize all those, every single one of them. No, it's simply 4 inches. This one worked out to be really, really, really simple.
TJ, if you wait until you're done, Jason and I will play a big old game of chess on one of these.
Checkers would be easier and likely more fun.
You're not a chess man.
I have never really learned to play chess.
It requires skill
I don't have
and
skill.
a mindset.
I mean, if there was some way to, well, what am I doing? If there was some way to equate it, like, thought process wise to, like, you know, numbers, then probably could do it, but. And we don't need these either right now. All right, Mr. C-Clamp. You on this end. Okay. So you need to be able to see the line and a little bit of light on the other side of it, like about a 32nd of an inch. And just one hand's fine. Okay, next one. A little bit back towards the line. A little more, a little more, a little more, a little more, a little more. There you go. Got to get the ruler far enough away so that the mark is actually, or so that the line is actually on top of the mark that you've made and not alongside of it or whatnot. Okay. Ooh. See, he learns so quickly. It's no wonder Corman hired him. And he snorts. I mean, they must have thought you had potential. Something that I ran into already in the course of laying out the first sheet is that the holes, which are supposed to be evenly spaced, aren't from front to rear. There were some of them, and it was not a cumulative error. It's not like they got progressively worse, because I struck the lines on the new sheet off of what was physically there, right on the boiler. I did come up with a couple little tricks to do it with, but anyway, overall not that big of a deal. And so I marked where all the columns, not rows. Rows are horizontal, columns are vertical, right? I marked where all the columns were with punch marks, and you would have on the other sheet, after dividing everything out evenly, you would have some that were perfectly in line, and then you'd have one that's out 1/8 of an inch. There was another one that was out like a 3/16 of an inch, because, you know, they didn't use, you know, straight edges that go down to the 64th to lay these things out. You know, they use massive dividers and this, that, the other. And at the end of the day, it was a big shop. It was probably dirt floor, you know, or brick or something. And they had these massive radial arm drills that, you know, they were precise enough to be really great products, but they were not exactly precision per se when it came to the boilers. Those in this industry, of which there's several more beyond myself, obviously, who do this boiler work correctly, are extraordinarily more precise, and we take way more care doing it now than the manufacturers or the railroads themselves ever did in the steam era. And that's evidenced by, is it gonna,
Go on the inside.
yeah. And that's evidenced by the, just stuff that we see when we take some of these machines apart. Because they are not always put together with the greatest amount of, care or attention to detail. But again, they're big machines. Well, and I say they were put together with care and attention to detail, but not the same level that we put into them in making repairs, is the point. Not to take anything away from what was done historically. I'm gonna have to get a step stool or something and start climbing up on the table. I guess I could just take my boots off, and that would be funny, wouldn't it? That shoeless guy.
But two, if you would have told the guys that if you had a time machine and could go back in time to Alco or Baldwin or Lima and tell the Boilermakers and machinists there, yeah, they're still going to be using these things 80, 90 years from now, 100 years from now, they're going to be running them, they probably would have laughed in your face.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're talking about these things have a 30-year lifespan or something. Well, more than that, they knew that. Alright, so in striking this, Peaches, at about that angle, the line's got to be right up against the side of the ruler. Back. Lean back. Like, no, there you go. They curl up so quickly.
I can hold a marker.
You know what? You say that like it's not a big deal. There's a reason I'm hard pressed to have people help mark stuff. I've had so many bad experiences. Like more than one. Like you would think that some people want to help so bad. They do. And they're really great at other things in life, and laying stuff out just isn't one of them. And then, so the next step, for those who are wondering, is after this sheet's laid out, after this sheet's laid out, then both sheets will be placed up onto the, back up onto the firebox. There's a little corner of this pattern at the front, kind of right here, that's really wonky. And it's all based off of the alignment of the flexible sleeves, which go out of alignment with the rigid bolts. So they do not follow the rigid pattern. And I kind of got an idea of where everything is, but it's just going to be easier to throw the thing up onto the boiler and mark it off that way. Then we can be sure. I like being sure.
Next weekend,
Is our open
at
house.
our open house, we'll be drilling holes at the open house. So maybe if you ask Jason real nicely, he'll do a video of that too.
I guess there are some people that seriously, I'm not being sarcastic here. There are people that have never seen steel drilled. It's why Modern Marvels and how it's made and whatnot's popular, right? The clamp. So yeah, that's not a bad idea. I really hadn't thought about that, but it's not a bad idea. There are people that have asked me, and what made me think of this is I'm constantly thinking about, all right, am I doing all this right? Have I forgotten anything? Is there anything, accuracy issues, whatever? Because you never know, right? I mean, you would like to think you have it all thought out, but we're all human. And somebody once upon a time said, I don't know how it is you do these live streams. Because, what if you made a mistake? And it was actually in reference specifically to a live stream that I did while I was in Texas, putting rivets into a firebox there. And they're like, man, what if you made a mistake? What if a rivet didn't come out right or something like that? And my response to that was, well, I probably would have gotten right up in the camera and been like, and that's how you screw up a rivet, folks. And I would have, just proceeded to fix it. And then people would have gotten to see what's involved in fixing a buggered up rivet.
We've got whiteout for metal.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Because, the prints for these they're not instructions, okay? They are in kind of guidelines. There are some dimensions where it's like over this distance, X number equal spaces. Well, that's pretty straightforward. Then there's other things where it's like X number of equal spaces from here to here. No dimensions. And some other things. So in the course of getting the pattern figured out on that sheet, I had to redraw a couple lines and white out for metal. And Evan was nice enough to white out my mistake for me.
I didn't say we had to use it. I'm just saying we had.
Well, see, but that's kind of making the whole point of if you make a mistake, then whatever.
Do they know the story about the blueprints that we have?
I'm not sure that I know it.
What it says on the blueprints, that because they're from the southern shop.
Oh, no, that's just one print.
Oh, that's just the one print.
Yeah, that's the, but that is an interesting little thing. So, back when this thing was being worked on in 80, whatever.
6.
No, like 80, 81. The Southern made up a drawing for tracking stable replacement and maybe breakage and whatever. But on the master drawing, which we have, on some sort of I forget the name for it, it's like a plasticky, translucent kind of material. Almost like a really, really, really heavy vellum, but it's not. Anyway, though, the point is that, everybody raise your hand if you've heard the word diseasel, right? Diseasel. From this original print that was made up in like 80, I'm pretty sure it was 80. It's the stay-bolt pattern for this firebox. And in the little data box down at the bottom right-hand corner, where it's drawn by this, that, the other, yada, yada, yada. Location, Birmingham Diseasel Shop. I have got to think that is probably about the first documented use of that word. I've never seen anything older in print. Not that I've seen much in print with it on there in the first place, but nothing older.
Mr. Purdy had jokes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and for those that don't know that, the Southern Steam Shop, it was actually a diesel shop that they just had partial use of. There was lots of other stuff that went on in that building. You know, I'm beginning to regret having forgotten to bring a new Sharpie.
I still got this one that's okay-ish.
Let's see it. It's better than this one. Cool. Moving right along. For a second I thought that was thunder. Instead, it's just a largely unmuffled motor.
Bicycle.
Yeah. When I was at the store earlier, this lady pulled up on a Harley, I think it was a Harley trike. So I mean, if somebody's talking about, did they say trike or did they say just bike or motorcycle? You know, I don't know.
I call it a trike.
I would think. Go ahead and strike yours first. You already have the marker. No. Yeah. Trick of getting these things into a location where they weren't going to be in the way was not.
You make a pretty good guess though.
Yeah, I mean, I did cheat and measure. It's like trying it, but with numbers. But I did yours move? No, mine moved. How did mine move? I didn't even touch it. There you go. I've got to say, this is a lot faster having help. Mine went wonky. You've got to keep the felt up against the side of the ruler. Where it goes wavy is where the plastic is hitting it. I mean, it's okay. It's in the field. It's managed to not be wavy where it matters. So that's pretty well all that. Well, it does matter. Okay. I guess I don't need to be on the table
why are
anymore.
you still on the table?
Well, you know, I'm not tall enough. I like being up high. And Evan's like, "Aw, I've now become obsolete." That would have been the nice thing to say. I've been like, "Well, I want you to have something."
Story of my life.
Huh. Next. I'm going to go get a new shirt. This is annoying. That, and it's just making me think about the Queen song. It has to do with that song. Prior to painting the sheet white, which is not it's not heavily painted, it's just enough to get a surface that's consistent, but the sheet was blasted, abrasive blasted, by Evan, actually. He was a real trooper. He made quick work of blasting both of these sheets. But that was actually a standard practice. I can't swear about all the locomotive builders. I know at least Lima, I believe, did that. And even in the N&W modern coal burning locomotive film, which you can find on YouTube, they actually talk about the fact that all of their plate steel for boilers is abrasive blasted. I think they actually say sandblasted before any forming takes place. Among other things, it gets rid of all the scale. And yes, ta-da! It gets rid of all the scale. Scale doesn't get in the machinery, etc. And you can mark on it. In this application, I use I'll show story time. Hold on. This is an annular cutter, okay? It's basically kind of like a hollow end mill. So this cutter, which puts a 3/4 inch hole into anything up to 2 inches deep, has a little 3/8 slug of metal that it pops out, like a little dowel. And that's that much less metal you're removing. But anyway, the relevant part to this is if the sheet were not blasted, the mill scale is an oxide accumulation, oxide coating on the exterior of the sheet. And, well, oxide abrades, it doesn't cut, right? So the life of the cutter is dramatically decreased if you end up having to go through the mill scale. Anything new?
Peter had another question. How far along is the 16 percentage-wise, and where will it run once completed? Will it be a traveling ambassador, branch line excursion, or mainline excursion engine?
To be announced on the second question. There's a lot of stuff in the works. Lots
TBD.
of stuff.
TBD.
Not determined. TBA. To be announced.
To be announced.
Yes. The percentage wise, I hazard to even put a percentage on it. Everything moves at the speed of funding, and the more we get, the farther along it would be. If I had $800,000 to work with, tomorrow it would be done in a year or less.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, nod, nod.
Yeah, to any of these philanthropic sorts out there. You know, there's a real philanthropic guy out in Southern California, Central California, Southern California. Yeah. The thing that sets this project aside from others is that it is a, need your calculator again, is that this is an economic development project, is the larger scope. You know, we've got the concert venue going in here, other things going on, lots of cool things happening. All right, so this is 11 and 13, 16. 11, 21, 25, divided by 3, and that is 2.9375. 3 and 15, 16. And 7 and 7, 8. Okay, I said I was going to do this. So, Evan here, he can talk about things.
Yeah, ask me questions.
I have got to go grab a new Sharpie up at the office because I'm not dealing with this anymore. It's not making, no, it's making a layer on me, but it's because I'm right up against it. It's not making sharp enough lines. And
In
I will
short,
be
it's
back.
driving his OCD nuts.
Like you can't even imagine. Like, just, yeah. I'll be back. Evan, answer questions. Go through.
Yes, I will. This is Ask Me Anything with Evan.
Wow. Anything. Nice.
So, Peter was asking, since Jason's doing that, we have continued working on the disassembly. So we're kind of getting up here in places. We got the hot water pump off and got it taken apart. So that has been an ongoing process. And we also have been doing a lot of work out at East Kentucky Power, getting our rail brought in so that some point this summer the Corman engine can be brought down here and get set up in the shop once we get the pallet racking and stuff put up. One of the big things that we need to do is outside the door, we've got 587's boiler and chassis. We need to get the chassis rolled back so that there's some things we need to do with the 16 as far as getting it outside, getting the superheater units pulled, the tubes and flues pulled, need to get the sandbox off the top of it, and a lot of that stuff requires it to be outside the door where we can get machinery in, like a crane to lift that stuff off, get a telehandler or something to be able to pull the tubes and flues out and get them, you know, where they need to be and ready to go. We've started kind of taking the valve gear apart, just taking some of the rods off of it and kind of just continued going over things. We got the power reverse taken off. It's laying over there. Like Jason said, Joe and I spent a week down here in February kind of disassembling things, getting things like the main air res tanks off, getting the brackets for them taken off. Nick was here helping us. We got a lot accomplished that week. And yeah, it's really just the biggest problem is we're running out of space. You can see all the different parts for the locomotive are on pallet racking or on pallets that we've got organized, and you know, all the cab components are kind of there, and we've got the booster truck control valve is sitting over there with the hot water pump. It's just, we're running out of space is the problem, and we don't want to just start taking parts off the locomotive and throwing them somewhere. You know, we kind of have a system for how we're organizing things to make sure that once we start putting the locomotive back together, it starts going back easier. We aren't searching for parts, nothing gets lost, nothing gets broken. You know, because as a lot of you know, some of these big heavy components, you drop them and something breaks, you know, you got to kind of wait until you can get a new part made. So we want to make sure that we're very careful with everything and handle things with kit gloves and just do the best job that we can to ensure that the locomotive is up and running as soon as possible.
And I just heard brakes screeching on a bike, so it sounds like Jason's walking back in.
Indeed. Set these there. Huh? What? Well, I won't need your phone anymore as a calculator. Instead, I'll just use a calculator.
Calculator.
Yeah. 3, okay. Now, we're at 12. So here, there's 3 rows of bolts. 3 rows of bolts, equally spaced. So you divide the dimension by 4. So that's okay, so the next step is we have to go there. I don't think this rule is big enough. How much, what's the percentage left on my phone?
Duh. 58.
Oh, okay. Any questions? Okay. .767. So what I'm doing now, as the pattern develops moving forward, between here and here, all the bolt rows are equally spaced. So I'm going to develop this out. They progressively, with the beginning of each pattern change, the line is projected all the way down the sheet. So I'm getting this set up. 59. Okay. Force. 560 force. 7. 54 hits. Force and 22 force.
The pencil is so much more precise.
It is more precise. Evan just commented the pencil's a lot more precise. Definitely easier to hit the number. And then I just go back over the pencil mark with Sharpie.
With a mortar.
Mortar, yes. Sharpie is just the best thing to do this with. And if they'd like to sponsor us. Ha!
Duh. Big piece of aluminum.
Yes. And the yellow pen. Where's the other Sharpie that I tossed down? Oh, I haven't. Never mind. This is it. Okay. So, for those that don't know, cold rolled aluminum is really pretty straight. However, it's not tempered, and as a result, it's kind of flexible. So, you have to use something to get the bow out of it. When you go to measure, go all the way to the end of the plate. No. You want to get it far that way as possible. Good deal. Good. Okay. And we'll slide it out. Ha. Let me feel shallow. Wow. All right. So now let's see this pattern. Thankfully, it's a repeat. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 long. So we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can go get rid of that. Just slide it over this way. Out of the way. Okay, 11 7/8. Eight. And 6. So 3 and 61/64. And then 7 and 59.
Ooh, we got 2 people from Australia watching now. That's pretty cool.
Steam fans from across the globe. Oh yeah, Australia definitely high on my desire list to visit.
Really like to see that. Is it 3801?
Oh my gosh, yeah, the job that I think the guy's name is Alan. He kind of headed that up. I think that's his name. The job that they did on the 3801, it's just a gorgeous locomotive. Okay, so that's the first bit of the interrupted pattern. Irregular, staggered, whatever words you want to use. Over the half. That one's also 5, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So there's the pattern, and then the break, and then the pattern, and then another breakout. They're all 5. They're all
Right.
sequences of 5. So there's the break.
So that's 12.5. Divided by 4. 3 and an 8. I love it when they work out to be whole numbers. Okay. So, an 8, 6 1/4, 9 and 3/8. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, now we're back to the aluminum. Like I said, the sawhorses made for a much easier go of this yesterday. Okay, you're definitely good on your end. I'm good on this end. It's hard to see from over there. Okay,
Crisp.
indeed. Nice, very nice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. like that sound. Oh shoot. See the back end of that one. That's the second one.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, front is the second corner. Okay, 11.7. 5.
Things are very busy right now, Bill. Working pretty much 6 days on, 2 off. Busy time of year.
Okay, 3.964. And 7.78. And incidentally, for those watching, Gary knows this, but Gary is the one who first introduced me to laying out boiler sheets. I don't remember what it was we were working on, but something that had to be flanged on a McCabe, TVRM. Tennessee Valley Railway Museum, for those that don't know the abbreviation. All right, now the beginning, it's got to have 3 bolts, but the beginning of the third pattern, yeah, it also has 3 bolts. Well, 3/8. Third.
I don't like this new Facebook Live style.
Why is that?
I don't know, it used to be you could go back and scroll through all the comments, and now it only shows you like 6 of them, like the most recent.
Yeah, I think when you're a page manager, you can.
I tried it on yours.
Oh, really?
No, yeah, it wouldn't work.
Well, once it ends, I know you can scroll back through them.
Oh, yeah.
27 is 3/16. Yep. 281. Okay, so 3 and 3/32. And then 6 and 3/16. And then 9 and 9/32. Okay. And is it, I think it's short enough for this now. Oh, yeah. Okay.
There's another sequence of 5 in there though, isn't there?
Okay.
There's another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that's the third pattern, and he said it's 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a 6. 6 1. Number of lines. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was just counting the spaces.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, back up on the table. Okay. Might be able to read it from there. I am gangly after all. Not even gonna try. Well, again, gangly. Alright.
Both of my knees just broke watching you do that.
Ha! Ha! Well, I mean, you know. Being tall has its advantages.
I'm 27 years old and I've got the knees of a 70-year-old man.
I don't. There are so many things that I could say to that, none of which are Facebook appropriate.
There's a lot of things you're known for, Jason. Your sense of humor is not one of them.
Oh, that's not true. All right. See, we're at 11 and 7/8. Divided by 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 8. So that's forms. And then 6. 9/64. Okay, so 3 and 61/64. And 7 and 59. Do-do-do-do. along. Hopefully, that's what we have. Hey, look at that. Works out. Okay. So, again, with the 12 3/8, this has been repeating all the way down, which is kind of an encouraging thing. I like it when numbers reoccur. It just makes you feel like, you know, you're on the right track anyway.
Get it?
But I'm
Somebody please be.
I don't count. Oh, shoot. Rear. Yeah, that's enough, I swear. Okay, so 12.375. Divided by 4. There we go, there's that number again. So I can actually just, where was it? This one, 937. I can just repeat that, which is great. So 3 3/32, 6/64, and then 6 3/16.
9 and 9/36.
Thank you. 9 and 18 60/64. So, I often refer to what I do as precision boiler work because for those that don't know this about me, more than anything, I'm a machinist. And I don't remember, honestly, how I ended up first working on a boiler, but somebody was like, well, you know, I don't really need machinist help, I need boiler help, so if that's something you can do, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, it's crude, comparatively. Nobody take offense. But it's in comparison to machine work, it's just not quite as, you know, you're hitting 30 seconds generally, not thousands, so, you know, it's not too bad. And so, you know, my paint is like bluing, and then my Sharpie marks are scribed lines. And yeah. So there you go. Everything else on the front end here has to be done once the sheet's back up on the firebox to measure out exactly off of the flexible sable holes. So there is laying out a sheet for a Kamala / Berkshire boiler, specifically the outer wrapper side sheet. But there it is. It's a neat thing. And I really appreciate your help because literally this was like half the time it took me to do the other one. It took a long time. I did the other one by myself. I had to like use these itty bitty C clamps to like gently clamp the edge of straight edge in place and all that jazz. So thank you very much, Evan. And stay tuned. There's a lot of boiler work going on. There will be machinery work going on in the future. Post in the comments or send me a message about topics you'd like to see covered. All the time I'm doing stuff and I don't think to actually shoot a video or whatever, because to me it's just another day, and I fail to, you know, remember that a lot of this stuff people haven't seen done. So always asking for ideas for video content. So definitely, I hope you guys were not bored too much. I would say enjoy, but you know, I enjoy it. I think it's great. You know, you're mapping out the creation of a new sheet that will be in the boiler for longer than I will be alive. Sad face. But it's a good thing too. Anyway, hope everyone's having a great weekend.